everybody that's joining us this morning, and a big welcome to our panelists. Hopefully everybody is enjoying this, what's been a beautiful May so far. After a typical mountain spring, it's nice to have the sun out and the flowers out and seeing everybody getting outside. But perhaps the most notable thing to happen with May is the governor eased off of our restrictions and took us from red, which was considered high risk, to orange, which is considered moderate risk, and said we may now begin to restart the economy, reopen our businesses, and under strict conditions, we can start getting back to normal. So we are very fortunate this morning to have a number of panelists that are coming in to talk about the rebooting of business in Park City, what that's going to look like, and give us our perspectives. So all of our panelists have been very involved in the planning and discussions for this reopening almost from the time we closed, and I'm hoping they'll share their thoughts, their concerns, and their ideas, and answer questions from the public, who I know are very eager to get back out and visit their favorite shops and restaurants and back outdoors and wondering what it's going to look like. So with that, I'll move to introductions. We have Alison Kuhlow, who is with the Historic Park City Alliance, Ginger Wicks, who is both with the Park City Area Lodging Association and the Park City Area Restaurant Association, and somehow still finds time to do good work with mountain trails on the side.
Hi.
We have John Kenworthy, who is the current president of the HPCA, as well as a local business owner. We have Danny Williams, who is the president or chair of the Lodging Association, and we'll talk a little bit about our hospitality industry. And then we have Councilmember Max Doilney, who is my co-host today, as well as a local business owner, long time. In fact, he grew up in Park City, so he has seen everything until we got to this. I think this is a new one for him. And he has also been very involved representing the city, working with the businesses on this recovery effort. So with that, just a few things to help this flow well this morning. If the panelists would like to speak, I will try to balance the questions around and call on you, but if you'd like to speak or add to it, try to raise your hand or signal me. If I'm not responding, feel free to wait for a pause and step in. And when you're not speaking, try to remember to hit mute, so we have less background noise. But with that, I'm just going to kick you off as questions start to come in and I review those. I wanted to give you each a question to begin with, which is, can you tell us a little bit about what you've seen in terms of how COVID and the shutdown has impacted the particular sectors you represent, and a little bit about how you plan to move forward? And if you don't mind, we'll kick things off with Alison.
All right. So again, I represent the Historic Park City Alliance, which represents the businesses on Main Street and then a portion of Park Ave, like High West, Avanza's, down to Butcher's, and then Sweet Alley. We have approximately 211 business licenses within that district. Not all of them are storefront. We do have offices above. But of course, as of March 15th, all our businesses needed to shut their doors unless they could offer curbside dining. We saw quite a few restaurants try it in the beginning, and I think we held on to four continuing to provide that throughout the time until last Friday, when people could start to open up more. What we are seeing is we've got 30 businesses open right now, 5 are restaurants, and there are definitely more who want to get going, but they're weighing kind of the understanding of just even our typical May traffic on Main Street is low. So, you know, would they or should they open, or should they wait until June? There's a lot of trying to decipher the regulations and understanding and sourcing material like plexiglass. So right now, I think everyone is anxious to get open. But again, May is never a strong month for us to begin with. So we're trying to kind of play with both of those.
Great. Well, thanks for that. Thanks for the intro, Alison. Ginger, would you like to go next?
Yeah. So as Andy mentioned, I am the executive director of the Restaurant Association, and restaurants are excited to get back online. As Alison mentioned, we did have quite a few restaurants that did move into a curbside delivery service during the initial shutdown, and most survived that. It was very challenging for a variety of reasons, but we're excited to get the doors back open. As Allison mentioned, that's kind of slow going. We do have about 30 restaurants right now that are open. Open meaning offering dine-in service, continuing to offer curbside and delivery service. And then we also have a list of folks that we know are going to be opening up in the next few weeks. It's a challenge for them just to understand all the guidelines for offering dine-in service, as well as getting staff up to speed, getting establishments clean, and making the adjustments for continuing social distancing, as well as getting supplies. But the county and the city and the Chamber Bureau have been really helpful in providing those supplies and getting that out to the community. And we did a great question and answer seminar on Tuesday with the restaurants, with the county, to kind of help get the restaurants up to speed on how to open, how to safely open, and how to understand all the guidelines, which was really helpful. And so I think people are moving to opening, and I hope in June we'll see the number of restaurants that are open really increase.
Great, thank you. And before I move on, I'm going to go to John next here, but I did want to mention, so we are having some problems with Facebook Live this morning. I'm not sure if that's up and running yet, but if anybody would like to make comments or ask questions of our panelists, I encourage them to use the Zoom Q&A. I'll be checking that on a regular basis for incoming questions. And if you're following us on Facebook and having trouble, I'm going to give out my direct number that you can text me questions as well. So here we go. It's 435-731-8366. So 435-731-8366. So if you're having trouble getting questions sent in, send them directly to that, and I'll make sure and ask them today. So JK, you're up. Don't forget your mute.
Good morning, everyone. First off, I just want to say thank you to the three ladies we have here. Allison has gone beyond the call of duty in the last 2 months. It's amazing, the level of communication that Allison and Ginger, and I know the support that Linda brings. I'm going to leave you guys out right now, but these three gals have done an incredible job. So I want to start with thanking them on behalf of the HPCA and behalf of the community. You guys have really pulled it off and kept things together. Mayor Beerman, nobody outworks you. Max, welcome to the crew. So anyway, I want to start off with a summary. I don't want to dive into the PPP and what everybody's going through and reopening and the UDABC guidelines and all that. I want to kind of start with a summary. And we all know in March, Old Town had a skyrocketing infection rate. Okay, all the recent data today shows that, the county and city hall leaders made a lot of choices, and these choices turned out to be really positive. The numbers have reduced greatly, and they deserve a lot of kudos. The big picture now, as we pivot, goes to the financial pandemic that we all have. And, the recent data now says, okay, this financial thing, this financial monster is going to turn into a beast. And we're going to be looking for a recovery. Now, what's it going to be? Is it going to be the V shape, the U shape, the O shape, the L shape? Well, if it's anything other than the V shape in near months, we're going to have major bankruptcies. And this is both personal and corporate worldwide. So we're all in this room together. And in this opening statement, I just want to say that the only thing that is certain, and we all look for certainty in our lives, the only thing certain is that we have to change. And we have to stay together when this certainty of change is happening. And that's not easy. It's not easy. We need to listen. We need to learn from diverse voices. and we have to stay together. We're a great community, guys. And one of the reasons is because of the diversity, and it is because we do listen and we do learn from these diverse voices. Thanks for joining this morning, and we'll dig into some of the numbers and some of the realities that we're facing as we go on here this morning. Thank you.
Thanks, John, and great message. Danny, you're up.
Okay. Looks like, is it a little cool there this morning on Main Street? I see you got your laptop up there on Main Street.
This is actually a fixed background of a beautiful morning, but it is a little cool this morning.
Pardon the phone, it'll quit after 2 more rings. Well, I represent two entities out there in that as the president of the Park City Area Lodging Association, and then I've been in the hotel business going on 48 years. This may be my retirement year. I'm thinking about it anyway. And of course, I've never seen anything like this. None of us are old enough to experience World War II, but I think that's almost analogous as far as threats and tough times. But on a local basis with the hotels, you got to know, and Indy's either has been in that business in the past or still is. I can't remember if you're still involved with Treasure Mountain, but I mean, hotel occupancy is flat as a pancake here in Park City, mainly because we're shut down. We had a couple of roadside properties that were able to stay open that were given permission by the health department because I had some essential guests in there. Family, the house was burned down. We had some government census people, some traveling nurses that were at one of them for a couple of days. So, and some truck drivers, things like that. So there's been some essential guests at a couple of properties, but for the most part, we're at 2-3% occupancy levels. So it'll be interesting, and I'll come back to this point in a minute about the local, but I also work for Intercontinental Hotels Group. So I represent 55 hotels and about 31 owners in 5 states in the West. And so I've got this cool map. IHG, who I work for, we have 3,800 franchised hotels, mostly franchised in the United States. And I've got this cool interactive map through our company of the United States. I can look at any of our hotels that are open, any that are closed, any that government or health departments has bought out to put in either patients or homeless. I can hover over those little dots and pick up occupancy levels the last 3, 5, 7 days, and 30 days. It's a heck of a map. So I can look at the whole U.S. Interestingly enough, and I think everybody would guess, a lot of folks right now are heading to St. George. If you look to VRBO or Airbnb, it's hard to find a place in St. George right now. And I support 3 hotels down there, which are running almost 50% occupancies. So I'm bringing that point home, hoping that maybe we can ease up on restrictions through the health department this summer. And I'd love to be able to see in July and August some staycations of Utah residents in Park City. But we have to follow the restrictions of the health department, need to be careful there. But we've got to do some stuff to get the hotels back open as of course, the major resorts have lost an incredible amount of weddings this summer, groups in business. So, and the number one market segment that will be coming back the fastest, and most of you may know this, is the leisure segment in the United States as well as Utah. So with the park reopening in Utah, we're going to have more leisure folks traveling. Corporate's going to take longer based on airline travel. And then groups and meetings, we're predicting, and Smith Travel's predicting up to 2 years of trying to get back to levels that we were in 2019 on groups and meetings. They're just going to be a slow return. So from a local standpoint, I really would like to see if we could take some marketing dollars or something in July and August. But that would be working with the health department to make sure that we have the green light. We don't want to disrupt anything. But it'd be nice to take some marketing dollars maybe for staycations, for packages, for Utah residents to come to Park City. So those are just thoughts that I want to banter about with our board of directors and Bill Malone and kind of throw that out with you guys. And so one last thing is made a couple of notes here. We're going to see such a change in the hotel industry. I mean, breakfast buffets will be a thing of the past. Spacing, distancing are going to be all worked out through protocols. The big companies, the Hiltons, the Marriotts, the IHGs like I work for, we've already got our protocols in place. But it's going to be a heck of a change in our industry. But we are being heard along with the restaurant industry and the airline industry as much as anybody. It's The occupancy levels are down 92% with luxury, and inner city hotels are down 79% for roadside hotels. And interestingly enough, the extended stay hotels, the Stay Bridge Suites, the Residence Inns, hotels like that, they're down 50%. They're doing okay, especially out west here. So that's just an overview of the lodging industry right now. And so locally, there's not a lot to report until we try to start opening up slowly.
Well, thanks, Danny. And certainly the lodging industry has been clobbered by this. Everybody's been hit hard, but I think there's a stat I saw last night about hotels and hospitality that they typically employ 22 million people in the US, and 11 million of them have been laid off right now. So I think that just shows how hard it's hit.
You're exactly right. If I could interject one other point, is we're having a tough time as an industry right now because a lot of the hotel industry applied and obtained the PPP payroll protection program fundings. I've got a lot of hotels that got that. The challenge is they've got to bring their employees back, and to get 75% and have to pay 75% of that money towards payrolls to have that forgiven, all but 1%. And hotels are having a hard time bringing employees back. That's a double-edged sword. They can bring them back, but there's nothing to do. I got one general manager said he has an employee sweeping the roof. The other thing is some of the employees don't really want to come back. Either they fear the virus or they're doing darn well on unemployment right now with a $600 bonus. So it's a tough challenge for the hotels right now to get the employees back.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Max, you want to share with us your thoughts as both a small business owner and a council member, what your observations have been thus far with the reopening?
Yeah, you know, it's been a really interesting time to be a rookie on the city council. Closing businesses after being open for 17 years, and then learning to sort of navigate public policy and you know, I've been working with everybody on this call quite a bit. And I think the one thing that I just keep coming back to, it sort of reiterates a couple of points that have already been made, which is maybe this is the short and dirty version, is, you know, as a city, our responsibility first and foremost is going to be public health. And then secondarily, it's going to be the economy, and it's going to go in that order. Regardless of really anything. So that's been the driving factor behind my decisions and the communications I'm having with people. And I'm trying to figure out how, as a community, we can work to help businesses prepare for the inevitable, which is a really difficult time coming up, and I'm not sure that we have clear answers on that yet, but the more heads like this we get together, I think the better chance we'll have of supporting small businesses. And as a small business owner, I'm just looking at ways to adapt, and we're doing that. We're shifting everything we do, and we're rethinking the entire business model, and we're preparing for the worst. So boy, I don't know what that looks like, but we're trying to prepare for next to nothing for 12 months, and we'll see if it's better than that. Great, we can all adapt to a lot of people flowing into town. We've all been in the weeds, and hopefully we'll be there again. But I plan on doing it with a skeleton staff for as long as I can see into the future.
Okay, great. Thank you, Max. And hey, I do want to let our panel know that Fox 13 has tuned in, and they've asked my permission to record this. So this may get broadcast, which I think is good. There is a lot of, I think people are starved for information right now. And one of the questions I have, I'd like to ask our panel is, there's been a lot of talk about Park City really promoting safety. And how we are going to make people feel comfortable coming back in our businesses. And I know each industry has a fairly elaborate plan that's outlined the best practices, but I think some of the conversations I've heard even go beyond that. So I'd like our panelists maybe to take turns talking about what they're seeing in their industry as far as safety, maybe in their own businesses or businesses they're affiliated with, some creative and innovative ideas they've seen, and thoughts on can we really provide a safe environment at this point? So I'll take hands rather than putting somebody on the spot here if we have a volunteer to go first.
I'll go first. I was going to try to bring up a picture, but it probably won't work. So let's start with retail. You know, retail right now perhaps has some of the most loose restrictions. Maybe that's not the right way to say that, but the less onerous restrictions. You know, one thing right now is that they need to put plexiglass at the cashiers. We see that at the grocery store right now. We did submit a request into Summit County yesterday, because if you were to just look at how someone comes in and shops, and let's say it's for clothing, there still is interaction between the customer and the salesperson. Everyone's got their, you know, masks on, they have gloves if they're required. But what's different between when you're chatting with them about buying that sweater than, you know, going to the cash register and paying? You're still kind of having that same type of interaction. So we put in a request that if it's wireless payment, where you can just tap your phone, can we get rid of the plexiglass? Because again, sourcing some of this material is the hardest thing. That's what's preventing some people from opening, because there is a requirement for masks. There is a requirement for certain types of cleaning products. And then when you get to restaurants, really, there's been a lot of conversation, and I'm probably gonna just hand this over to you, Ginger, but you know, just about how many people can sit at a table, and do they have to live in one house, but what if they're all related? You know, the nuances are so nuts, and we're continuing to get clarification. And unfortunately, the clarification isn't adding capacity. And that's where, you know, people need to start breaking even. And so there's a lot of just understanding what you need. Retail has a really low need for number of employees on the floor. But if you look at a restaurant, how many people do you need in the kitchen? How many people do you need front of house? Really, that's where people are starting to say, especially in the restaurant industry, how many people do I need to sit to make it work for evening, for dinner?
I'll jump in.
Okay.
I'll jump in and tackle some of the restaurants, and Max and I have had this conversation, as have the entire Restaurant Association board, about, you know, we want folks to come to Park City, and we want locals out dining, but we want to make sure that we're all doing it safely. And how can we ensure the public that we are doing it safely? And the restaurants, I think that's why a lot of them haven't opened, is because they are taking the time to make sure they are dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's to ensure they get the guests' safety when they come in. And the plexiglass comment that Allison made is a big one. For the sushi bars, they're looking at putting plexiglass in between the sushi chef and folks sitting actually at the bar. For the booths, they're looking at creative ways to putting the 6-foot divider up between any given booth so that they can maximize their capacity, but then again, also keeping the public safe. So that's some of the creative things that they're doing. But I will say to everybody listening, the restaurants are very concerned about keeping everyone safe. And so that is why it is more of a slower opening. Obviously it is May as well, but I would assure the public that if you're going out there, the Park City restaurant community is taking all steps to keep everyone safe. And Max and John could probably add to that, being restaurant owners.
Yeah.
Well, they both had their hands up. So I think JK, you raise yours first. Let's go to you, and then we'll go right to Max.
I think we all understand the math. Restricted restaurant occupancy means less jobs, less people coming back into the workforce, for sure. I'm gonna ditto what Max said. We're gonna open with a skeleton crew. The square footage restrictions also include, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ginger, throughout the state, there is no bar seating. So if we don't have bar seating, that's 60 feet by 15 feet throughout the middle of the restaurant, where it's, you know, we have to pay the rent, all the fixed costs are the same. But truly having a bartender, do you know any bartenders that want to come to work behind a bar where no one's allowed to be? So, I mean, if you do have them, call Yvonne. It's really hard. But like Danny was saying, it's tough to judge these. A lot of them are on unemployment. A lot of them are down in Moab and just camping and really enjoying and hopefully keeping a real good personal balance. But coming back here, there's a lot of these issues that are going to be very difficult for us. That being said, the most serious thing we can do is safety. And I'm with Max 100%, and Max has been out front saying we want a message that we're the safest city in the state, in America, and we can do that. You know, the logistics work for us, and if we all pull together, we can be the safest city. But there's a push against that with people who are you know, very vulnerable, and they don't want second homeowners coming back. They don't want tourism. So these conflicts we have to, you know, get together on. We really have to get together. We need to send a message out. We need the vibrancy. HPCA just had a conference call where we were just taking temperatures, Allie and I was so proud to be a part of it. There was such unity there. And what the big thing that came out is we need tourism. Allie's going to go with some numbers with you, some real data, hard, cold facts that we have that are, you know, they make you gasp, because we're really going to need the community help, the local help, but that's not enough. It just, the math doesn't work. So really, my dearest friends are in the most vulnerable section of this, a target for this virus. We're going to do everything we can and more. And that is closing the restaurant 3 times and cleaning it throughout the day, which is mandated by the reopening orange level. We're going to have sanitizers. Every single employee is going to be wearing a mask. All of those things are going to happen. And I know my neighbors in every sector are going to do that. So we're going to work out some social distancing. We're going to do it. So we're going to try. And again, we have to balance it with this financial pandemic.
Great. Well, Max, I know you wanted to chime in, and while you do, maybe talk about some of the changes I've heard you're making in your business to adapt to this and try to make it economically viable.
Yeah. Well, first I want to mention I keep tagging out because I'm on my phone and I feel like my video is a little shaky. So I just put the picture. It looks a little better. You know, one thing that we talked about yesterday with the Economic Resiliency Committee, that or a task force that many of us on here are on actually, is putting together some little videos and trying to get some social media out to clarify what mask is the proper mask to wear. How many times a day do you need to be closed? What are the procedures to keep your staff safe? And that's where it starts. If your staff is safe, then you can go to keeping your customers safe. But you can't keep your customers safe if your staff aren't safe. So, you know, trying to attack that first, right? Make sure everybody's safe who's working, and then you move on to your customers. You can't even open if your staff's not safe. In my business, what we're doing is we have a handful of different rooms, and we're going to use those rooms differently. We're turning an old coffee shop into a mini mart, and we may turn our bar, because of exactly what John's talking about, we may try and turn our bar into a packaging store where we can sell wine and liquor and just kind of have that be a one employee zone with people who flow through in directional lines down the lines, and they can buy their liquor there. And so vacationers will have some options, and then we'll keep part of our place as a restaurant. That's the only way I can think to adapt and try and cater to the population that we have. But again, it's a catch-22. We need the tourism. We need those people in town. We want to be able to advertise that we're among the safest places anywhere. But do we want all those people here? Because that's where the virus came from, really, and that's how it exploded. So, and I think that Allison's numbers are going to show you a little bit about what it's going to take in Park City proper to keep these businesses going if we don't have tourism, and it's daunting. So I think we all got to keep doing what we're doing here and working together. I think we're going to try and get the community out and engaged, but in a safe way. And the safer we can be as a community, the better chance we have of opening on the front edge of when things start getting better. But I want to make sure that I caution, opening early may be the worst thing we could do. I know everybody's freaked out, but another bump could really be the devastating blow. The rest of the country does not have consistently better scenarios. They're still rising in cases almost everywhere. We're not having more recoveries than new cases, et cetera. All of those things are not happening nationwide, and our tourist population comes from all over the world. So we got to look at if the country's not doing well, I think Park City's not going to do well unless we make some really dramatic changes.
Thanks, Max. And I want to circle back in a minute here to the question of, do we want to encourage tourism right now? We just had somebody ask us that. But before we do, Danny, do you want to offer your thoughts on new safety measures in the hospitality industry?
Sure. I think Max had a good point on customer perception. The hotels that I work with, this has been the real crux the last few weeks of our protocols. We've sent out tons of information on proper protocols, on check-in, et cetera, cleaning and all that. So it really is important that our guests have that perception, and that's the key word, I think, that they're in a safe environment. And so it is up to us. It's a little more expensive, a little bit more labor intensive, but for example, at check-in, hotels should consider, as we have in our groups, curbside check-in, paperless check-in. If they want to check in the lobby, of course, we should have our plexiglass shields up between the desk clerks and the potential guests. But there, with today's technologies, all the big brands have apps, and you can literally check yourself in through your app. And then a desk clerk can take a key that's in a sanitized bag out to the car. They can drive around to the specific door that's closest to their room. So those are some protocols that are ready to go now. Guest spacing in rooms, whether it's a floor rotation. We had some hotels want to close off whole floors, and well, that's okay, but maybe you want to keep that guest room checkout vacant for 48 hours or so before it's cleaned. And then spacing the guests every other room or every third room or those types of things. Property management companies are a little bit different. A lot of those are freestanding condos or houses, but same type of cleaning and protocol should be in place there. Thought needs to be given to housekeeping services. Do we offer the guests housekeeping options? Do we leave the clean linens, et cetera, at their door, let them clean their own rooms? They may feel better doing that. Give them a discount on the room for that lack of service. So I think protocols are ready to go. Maybe independent hotels will need some direction. The county health order provides some of that direction, but I think the hotel brands themselves have internal protocols to follow. But perception is everything. And the last thing I'll say is, I say perception because as a senior, I get to use the senior hour at the grocery stores, places to go, whether it's Costco in Salt Lake City or the stores up here. And a couple of weeks ago, I've used this as an example. A couple of weeks ago, I went to a particular store in my senior hour, and they weren't really following protocols. They were not screening the folks, and I don't whine about that. I'm a healthy person, but I noticed that, and I didn't feel as comfortable. So I let them know on their website how I felt about that, and I have a choice to go to another store that's doing a better job. So that perception is what I come back to every time. Our guests are comfortable. They're going to stay at our properties, eat at our restaurants, et cetera. So I think we're all on board with that.
Okay, some good insight. I'm going to combine two of the questions that just came in into this next question, and they both revolve around the fact that our economy depends on tourism, and yet the recommendation really both from the state and the county health department are we don't want to embrace tourism. We're not ready for it yet. So how do you think we're going to ultimately balance those differing viewpoints? And how will any uptick, do we worry about what Max talked about earlier, which is if we have a reoccurrence now, if that's going to set us back for peak summer and peak winter times? Go ahead, Allison.
Thank you. So one of the things that the HPCA did acknowledge, and we put together our own economic recovery plan, we did acknowledge that whatever we need to do, we want to be able to make it to the ski season, and we want a strong ski season. Whether or not that's realistic, we don't know. We've seen, looking at, you know, data, if we loosen too much, then the cases will increase and then we'll go back to red. So we understand the consequences of what that is, and the consequence, of course, is people getting sick and death. So I get the dichotomy we're seeing, but one thing we do need to look at is how we make our money here in town. I wanted to provide a kind of some factual basis to try to be able to help the business owners look at their books and say, how should I project what my revenues are going to look like, or what my operations are going to look like this summer? And I went back in time, and a decade ago, 2009, that summer is when Main Street felt the recession. That's when you saw a dip in our sales. So from that point, I took the estimated sales for Main Street. So this is not for Park City proper. This is not for Summit County. This is just for Main Street. From 2009 to 2019, the estimated sales grew 120%. So if we go back to 2009, if we wanted to keep our businesses just at that revenue, and if we were closed, so the only people who could shop here were residents in Summit County, each man, woman, and child would need to spend $4,200 on Main Street within 3 months to just bring us to 2009 recession levels. And I know this is a you know, doomsday, gloomsday, whatever, but until we start looking at what real numbers work, can we make a plan? And so I do think we need to look at, how do we make this work? There's no amount of ingenuity, you know, that can make this work by not opening to tourism. So, you know, it's not my decision, but it's one that, you know, the council members and the county council members are going to need to wrestle with. This is going to be devastating.
Okay, that's sobering. Anybody want to add to that?
Yeah, 2009 was the worst. Again, I'm just repeating what Allison said. That number is based on the worst summer we've had in 15 years. And to get there is going to be tough. You know, the $3 million businesses should now be changing and looking to gross maybe $1.2 million. And what does that do to our unemployment level? I mean, it's going to reduce it greatly. So all of these effects, you know, they're going to be hard, and they're tough decisions, really tough decision. And, you know, the council has made all the right decisions so far. This is a perfect storm where Andy and Max can make the perfect compromise and anger everybody. So that comes with your jobs, and you know, God bless you as you guys come to terms with this. The financial pandemic is going to be very, very difficult here. The tab on this coming financial spreadsheet is extremely vulnerable for resort towns. One bad decision by the resort owners could cost tens of millions of dollars if they open up. What happens if they don't? Where do their employees go? How do they get their employees back? If they open up and God forbid, we have a resurgence, just like what happened in 1918. And the second wave in 1918 was far deadlier than the first wave in the Spanish influenza, the Spanish flu. So we're in uncharted waters. These decisions that our big operators have in town, in a blink, cost tens of millions of dollars. So change is coming. We got to stick together.
So I know the business community is every bit as diverse as our residents, and there are many, many opinions on how this should be approached. Most folks wish we were more strict, less strict, but is there any sort of consensus on tourism and how bullish or timid we want to be right now, and what we're really aiming for at this point among the business community? And I think Max has his hand up, so I'll let him go first there.
I think that if there is a consensus, let's look at how our neighbors are doing first, and let's start from the inside and work our way out, right? So it's if Park City residents are safe and healthy, or we're doing really well, great. Let's have them kind of start coming out. And then is Summit County good? And then are the counties around us doing well? And let's work on that drive time market first. That's at least something that we've been talking about. Danny can attest, those are the hotels that seem to be doing the best, are the ones that are easy to drive to and not these huge destination things. And it may be that we just have to limp back into this. And that's not a solution everybody wants to hear, but getting, your neighbor better than the guy who's living in New York or Paris or whatever. So, and unfortunately right now, the counties in Utah are not, they're not seeing their direction isn't looking as good as we would like it to look, so that we could start saying, hey, come on up. We're definitely not there yet. So, but I'm wondering if we start from the inside and work our way out, that rubber tire market, as the chamber calls it, may be our first opportunity to start seeing some visitors and know what's happening versus, just coming from everywhere around the world, which I don't think is going to happen soon anyway. So.
Okay. I'm gonna switch to a question that came up regarding how businesses are planning on managing this in terms of both screening employees, maybe taking temperatures of customers. Are we seeing any protocols form how we're going to address that? Go ahead, Ginger.
I'll answer that for restaurants. So in the Summit County guidelines, restaurants are required to take temperatures at all shift changes. So all employees coming in at the beginning of their shift, they are required to take the temperature of the staff and log it. They won't be taking temperatures of guests, but we will have signage at all establishments, restaurants, but other businesses. The standard, if you have a fever, if you're feeling sick, please obviously don't enter. But that's how the restaurants are managing employees, as well as they have strict cleaning guidelines, which JK mentioned, which also have to be logged. So that's some of the steps that the restaurants are taking.
Okay. Anybody care to add to that? Or Danny, you want to let us know steps hospitality is going to be taking with employees and guests?
Yeah, Andy, those are lined out also on the health orders, quite extensive. We've been working as an association to try to tweak a couple of things. We're a little bit vague on some of the pool restrictions or not. But yeah, the employees, like I said, there has to be protocols. And if any of the hotels in this community needing that information, I'll be glad to provide that to them. I think most of the major chains or brands or resorts have protocols in place and will be fine. Again, for that perception of the guests. But if there's any need for that, I have some nice protocol priorities that we should follow on all that. And yes, the same thing with checking employees when they check in. The other thing, which is a little dicey that needs to be considered, is where are these guests coming from? And they're, most are going to be driving. Gas prices are cheap this summer. I think people want to, there's a new term out there, Smith Travel coined this, and it's called revenge travel. We used to call it pent up demand in the hotel business, but it's called revenge travel now. And I just love it. I've used that a lot of places, but these are people that are sick of being in the house and they want to get out and they've got an automobile and gas is cheap and hey, let's go somewhere. So I think it's going to be important that our hotels are noteworthy of where the guests are coming from. If they're coming from hotter spots, some considerations need to be made. I'm not saying turn them away, but if they're coming from some hot spots in the United States, we really have to double down on working with those potential customers. So,
JK, real quick, I want to add something, and maybe you can answer this as you speak. But you hear about businesses in Asia, restaurants in particular, but all businesses really taking people's temperature before they enter the establishment as sort of a precaution. Are you hearing anybody that plans to do that in our community?
Yeah, I don't mind that, and we are ordering the equipment to do that with. I just wanted to follow up with Danny. 86% of the people who visit let's take our museum, the Park City Museum on Main Street, 86% are tourists. So a lot of the businesses do track the demographics and where their customers are coming from. And being a second home, this is just raw data, straight facts. Being a second home community, vast majority of residents are second homeowners. We're gonna just need that tourism, guys. We're really gonna need that tourism. How we deal with it. The fact that we need it really can't be argued. The question is, how do we deal with it? And I think Mac's progression from neighbors to county to counties, and then we look over at Utah County, we look at Salt Lake County, you know, they're averaging 160 infections a day. How do we deal with it? The fact that we need it really can't be argued. We just have to, we have to come up with procedures and processes to make it safe.
Alison, go ahead.
Yeah, I think both, as you know, everyone's mentioned, it is within, I believe it's all the business protocols that they need to monitor their employees, and there is an employee log that they need to keep, and it is taking temperatures. But just imagine right now getting thermometers that you don't, you know, you can weigh from a distance is really, really hard. So again, looking at that supply chain, we are doing what we can on Main Street, you know, the frequency of cleaning restrooms, benches, handrails. But I think what Max said, and let's just use it in a different way, how he went from, you know, okay, first we look at our locals and then we look at the surrounding counties. Think about that when you're purchasing things. Before you click, you know, put in my cart on Amazon, see if there's a local business that can provide it and buy it there. It's going to be, I mean, yes, you got to get out of your house, and yes, you got to wear a mask, but this is what's going to keep things going. And if you look at what the city and county services you enjoy, those are going to go up. The cost to the residents is going to go up if we can't keep, you know, the money flowing within this county. And yes, let's start local first.
That's a great addition, and just a very simple way for everybody to look at this. About 85% of our sales taxes come from non-residents in our town. So that shows how dependent we are on this external money and what large gap we're going to need to make up. Here's a question that I think at this point is just a speculation, but I'd be curious to hear our panel's opinions. The question is, what's the likelihood that the resorts will open for summer business for mountain biking and other things? And if they don't, what impacts will that have on the town?
Well, I think what we're going to see is of course, we have mega resorts here with Stein and St. Regis and Montage, et cetera. They're going to have to face challenges of, okay, did we apply for PPP funding? Can we bring the employees back? What's our break-even cost to even open up? In each resort, each hotel is going to have to make those decisions on their own. The more transient hotels, as I call them, maybe that's the Hyatt Place, Holiday Express, and DoubleTrees. They've got lower operating costs, of course. They've got less rooms to fill. So that's going to be quite the challenge for those folks to make those decisions on summer business. Of course, we all want to go gangbuster for for the ski season. But I've been here now 17, 18 years, and I remember first moving here, we had no summer business to speak of. And gosh, the chamber and certain groups out there, the Lodging Association, have really improved that. So summers, we have some robust summer business out there, except for the mud season. And we're going to lose most of that, if not all of it, this summer. So the hotels are going to have to make individual choices on reopening, whether they have the triple P money and should bring the employees back, whether they should just cut their losses, pay their fixed costs, and move on to the fall. So that's what I'm seeing.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to add to that?
I'll
Okay.
add, I mean, if the resorts, obviously they're, as Danny said, need to do what's best for them and figure out their numbers. And I think in all conversations I've had with restaurants and all businesses, while we want to save summer, of course, everyone is really focused on winter and taking steps to make sure or you know, hopefully that we have a good winter. But that being said, if the resorts don't open, I mean, obviously that will be hard because people coming to mountain bike and enjoy everything that both the concerts and all of that drives guests into retail and restaurants. So we're going to have to get creative and how to continue to drive folks here if those amenities are not open. And I think there's ways we can do that, but it will certainly be challenging and a hit for businesses. But, you know, I think we can come together as a community and work through that.
Great. I think Max had an addition.
Yeah, I just, you know, I'm right there at the resort with two businesses, and you know, my business is unique, but I can say that I can't agree with Ginger more. If the outlook is as stark as it is, the reality is we got to figure out the hard decisions are, what do you give up and what do you get for it? And for me, it's a unique position, but we, you know, 10% of our annual revenue comes in those 3 months in the summer, maybe 15 on a good summer. So for us, it's how do we save that winter? And if the resorts don't open in the summer, you know, I can automatically just throw that 15% away because that's 100% of my business. But if they don't open in the winter, I'm throwing away 100% of my business. So it's a complete failure. So I'm kind of with the group here. We got to make hard decisions. And Andy, you and I have had conversations about this. You know, people are preparing me for really difficult decisions at the city level. And I think as a group, business owners are in this together, trying to figure out how to make really hard decisions. And something Danny brought up that I kind of want to try and jump onto, which is those bigger companies, maybe while they're taking a big financial hit, they also have deeper pockets. In a town like Park City, the small business community has to work together. We got to figure out I don't think we're going to figure out how to spend $4,200 per man, woman, and child and save every business. But if we work together, we can come up with some creative ways. Andy, you brought something up yesterday when we were speaking about rotating lunches and dinners or days of operation or something, just to have a balance, right? Work together so that we're not all competing for everybody's dollar every moment. Ideas like that, I don't know if that one's going to work, but ideas like that may just give us that life raft we need to get, you know, through the worst of this, and maybe we can save our winter.
Well, that's well put, Max, and we're running out of time. So I'm going to use that as a segue to give each of our panelists an opportunity to work towards a conclusion here. And one of the things I'm going to pose to them is how can the city and the county help them? how can the citizens help them, and how can they help each other? What are opportunities we all ought to be looking for we know this is going to be hard, but how can we ease it or do better together? So if you want to take a second and think about that, I will just answer, actually, I'm going to throw this one to Max. I've got a short question here for you. Does a business need to submit a plan to the city or county before they can reopen?
We have health inspectors coming out to restaurants and lodging facilities, double checking what you're doing, and you're going to be able to get a certificate that shows that you're abiding by the new health regulations. So yes, you need to have a plan, and you need to communicate with the health department that you are going to open and when. And you know, you need to let them know exactly what you're going to do to make sure that your staff is safe and that you're providing or you're abiding by the health order. And John might even have gone a little deeper on that than I have, because I saw him post a picture of his new reality yesterday.
Okay, and then go ahead. Ginger.
Sorry, I just wanted to add to Max's comment, or that regardless of your business type, your first step would be to go to Summit County's health department's website and register that you are going to open. There is an online process that would be your first step as opening your business.
Thank you for covering that. My understanding is they're having you begin there. You'll fill it out and post it in your window, and then within a week, they're going to come around and do full inspections of every business.
Correct.
Okay.
So we did get our inspector come by yesterday and walked us through everything that was needed. It was interesting. They were also accompanied by law enforcement, and everybody was very nice and explaining, you know, where the plastic goes and the occupancy and, you know, the 20-person maximum group and how that had to be handled. All of it was really good, and for them to walk off. But certainly they did indicate that, you know, they were going to be enforcing this, and I'm happy to hear all that they are enforcing it. I want to go back. A lot of people are talking about PPP, and PPP comes with a 96-page guideline. Some people are discovering that it's fool's gold. Obviously, there was a real problem with the first applications and the way the money was distributed. But with this 96-page guideline, nobody really knows how much is going to be forgiven right now and how the banks are going to certify them. Thank goodness these business owners that applied got this money, and a great deal more got the money on the second round. But what Danny said is absolutely right. You know, you have to use this money within 8 weeks. You have to bring back your employees or just pay them. And it's hard to weave the needle through just those main guidelines and now go through the other 95 pages of certification for relief on that money. So yeah, it's another difficult one. I wish there was a clear answer where I could tell you that, you know, there is relief for small business owners. The small business owners got no sales tax relief. The special session ended without giving us anything. There was a talk about a payroll relief and going through on a national level, and of course that didn't happen. The PPP is what it is. There's been very little landlord mortgage. I don't want to end this call as a grim reaper, but it's been rough, and it is rough. So yes, where the city council came through and they're helping us with free parking right now, and they're waiving permit fees and dining deck fees, stuff like that is huge for us. Andy and Max, thank you. I mean, you guys are doing what you can, and we understand that there's a process. There's only so much you can do if you don't have the state and national guidelines alongside with you. So yeah, I think in closing my deal out here, I just want to encourage everybody to be thoughtful and to be kind. Listen to diverse voices. Don't hold on to these, you know, zealot ideas anymore. Let's all work together. And those diverse voices, That's going to guide us to make the best decisions that we can make. Thank you, guys. And Andy, thank you for inviting me here today.
Thanks, John. Hey, two quick things I want to follow up on that. Just this morning, GoEd released news that they've got $40 million that are going towards rent relief for small businesses. I think that's a first come, first serve. So any of you small businesses that would like potential grants to offset some of your rent during this crisis, I recommend you go straight to the GoEd website and get an application in as quickly as possible. But that should be a boost. I looked at it briefly and it looks like a pretty good program, and I don't think there are a lot of strings attached. The second is minor, but John brought up the efforts the city's been making to help businesses wherever we can. One of those is we were able to place some bulk orders on sanitizer and masks and gloves. We're still waiting, unfortunately, on the masks and gloves. We hope to have those in large quantities next week, although we have a little bit right now we can share. But from 1 to 5 today at Miners Hospital, we will have bulk supplies that businesses can come by and pick up. Please, if possible, just bring your business license. So
that's 1 to 5 today, Andy.
Pardon me?
Will you say the time again?
1 to 5 today at Miners Hospital.
Thank you.
Yep, certainly. And Allison, I think you've been.
Sure, and a picture of your business license works. You don't have to have the framed one. So I've been the downer today, but I think what I want people to take away from my comments today is, yes, we need to be innovative. Yes, we have to figure this out. And I appreciate people starting to understand the circumstances in which these businesses are. We need more than atmosphere for this to work. We need to be able to look at how businesses can be profitable without having to put a lot of front end cash into any new ideas. But the takeaway is you gotta shop local. There is no other option. And even if you look at, if you shop at a store on Main Street, think they have a bookkeeper who lives in town. Think of their accountant. Think of the person who cleans their store. All our money goes around multiple times in this county. And so by supporting local, by supporting small local, you're keeping not just that business open, but those people that support them. They're IT guys. There's many, many people that support these businesses, that rely on these businesses to be open for them, for their work. So please shop local.
Thanks, Allison.
Well,
Ginger or Danny? Go ahead.
I'll jump on Allison's thoughts of keeping, getting out and supporting local restaurants. And there's a variety of ways that you can do that, whether dining in or still taking part of curbside or enjoying takeout, whatever level you're comfortable with. I encourage you to get out and enjoy the restaurants as they open up and come back online. And I think this is a unique opportunity. The one good that I think has come out of this, from my perspective, representing so many associations in the area, it's just been amazing how we've all come together. I mean, Allison and I talk daily now, if not hourly, and just all the collaborating efforts coming together. The Restaurant Association and the Arts Association, we're supporting each other, and so that is the good that's coming out of it. And I just remind people to be kind. And don't yell at me for going down the wrong aisle, the wrong direction in the grocery store. I'm trying so hard to get that down, but just be kind to each other as we go through this. It's unprecedented.
Great advice. Danny.
Yeah, I'm going to follow up on Allison and Ginger's comment. Shopping locally is so important. I've tried to get my 30-year-old daughter to do that. I tell her Amazon's doing just fine without us. And so some people are reluctant about going out, but kudos to you guys. You're exactly right. I try to do everything local as I can. The only nightmare is trying to get into Home Depot. Whew, that's something else over there. Last thing I want to throw out there, I believe, is that I think the county's doing a good job on tracking the data. If we could get even more specific, though, maybe geographical, maybe Park City proper, maybe parts of the county, because, we do have owners of second homes, like you all were discussing, coming to town. Okay, I'm hearing that. They don't want to be in California necessarily. So they're silently creeping back to their houses here, and they own these homes, and that's their prerogative, of course. But I think maybe some specified tracking in different geographical districts in the county will help us reopen. I would love to reopen tomorrow. That's not realistic. I think May's a flat month. Let's write that off. June may be a flat month to write off for the visitation, but it'd be nice if we could really specify that data and going into July and August to see if it's worth our while to market Park City, cool Park City in July and August for the Utah residents. So I think we got to follow the data, and I think the county's doing a good job, but if we could even get more specific, that may help us make these decisions. So I've got, thank you for the invitation today.
Great point, Danny. And I will say both the collection of data and the and testing has been the Achilles heel throughout this. That I think the county health department has a lot of ideas which they don't yet have the tools to implement. So I'm hoping as this summer goes on, we're able to expand that because it's going to be absolutely key. Max, you want to take us home?
Yeah, I think I'll go back to the question you asked, which is what can the city do to help out the small business community and help people through this? And, you know, I don't think, Allison, I don't think you've been a downer. I think it's a really positive thing to give people realistic expectations and for them to know what the reality that we're living in is. So I really give you credit for doing the hard work of putting that out there. And then I also want to pair it what Ginger said. Kindness goes a long way. And if you're out and about and your expectations are equal with the people around you, rather than having a debate about what if, it's easier to be kind to people because you know you're in it together. And so I think the city has a responsibility to give people the real expectations with, you know, we want to look to the future and see the rose out there, the rosy picture, but we need to be very real about what's happening right in front of us. And that helps small business owners make pragmatic decisions in the moment. And some people may have to make that really hard decision to close. I had a business a long time ago, and I could see the writing on the wall. It wasn't going to make it without significant capital investment. And it was hard, but I closed it, and it still had potential, but it was lower than 50% likelihood I was going to make it. It was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, but looking back, it was the right decision, and it was the best thing I did to save the rest of my world, my house, my other businesses, etc. So being honest with yourself about what's right in front of you is key. So thank you, Allison. Thank you, Ginger. Thanks for everybody for getting on here and being honest about where you are.
Okay. Well, I also want to thank our panelists. As Ginger talked about the level of coordination being unprecedented, and I think that can't be stressed enough. I have not just seen this entire town step up and really fight for each other, but I've seen amazing coordination among the business community on not just how they can keep their businesses afloat, but how they can help their workers and how they can help the vulnerable people in need in our community. So I thank you all for being very active in this crisis. We wish you the very best. I think sometimes people are cavalier about business needs to take care of itself and you know, take their knocks. But we all need to remember, we cherish our small town unique feel in Park City, and a major part of that fabric is our small businesses, which make us unique and really allow us to shop at home and take pride in who we are. So I think this entire community is rooting for you. We're going to do our best to help you. I think it's a great reminder that we all need to shop locally when we can. And I think it's come up many times today about the balance between tourism and recovery. And I think we're going to be walking a fine line there. We're slowly opening in May, which is a good thing because May is not a strong month, with the hopes that we can learn, we can adjust, we can monitor and tweak and avoid any setbacks so we can capture some summer business, but most importantly, winter business. So thanks again to our panelists. A huge thanks to our audience. I know we didn't get to all of the questions today, but I will try to respond online to the remaining ones, and we'll see everybody next week. Stay safe.
Thanks, everybody.
Good work, all.